Taylor, good morning. I was going to say good night, but or good evening, but yes, it's morning. It's most definitely morning at 2:24 a.m. Eastern time. Not the best time to be doing a live stream. Not necessarily ratings getter. One online right now. Not necessarily a ratings getter at 2:30 in the morning Eastern time, but it seems like forever since I've done a live stream. And I just got to talk college football. And you guys know that this is my very favorite time of the year when it comes to sports. My very favorite time of the year, bowl season. What I love about college football, Taylor, thank you so much for hanging on here. We got 3 on the line now. And I was amazed a couple of weeks ago. I did an impromptu, as they all are these days, and I will get a schedule out after the college football season is over and we move into the off season and I figure out when I'm able to go live on a consistent basis. I will get a schedule out to you because last college football season in 2018, that worked very well. And we built up a live audience very nicely doing that. All good, sir. I'm here for some late night playoff breakdown action. Yes, Abijay. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. I believe that this is the first time I've seen your handle either in the live chat or in any of the conversation here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So it appears as though you've watched me on a fairly regular basis, but I got to give you this, Abijay. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Would love to know who you root for and how long you've been watching. So again, I was just mentioning that I was amazed that at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning with no notification that I started a live stream. This was about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and we had almost 100 on the line live at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So Taylor, Abishai, anybody else watching us right now, we appreciate it. So I was not able to watch a whole lot of football today. I started to watch the 2 o'clock, the first college bowl game today. Had to go to work a couple hours later. That was not much of a game anyway between San Diego State and Central Michigan, with Rocky Long putting a hurting on Jim McElwain. I really wanted to see Washington and Boise State. Thought that was going to be a better game in the Las Vegas Bowl. I did see some of that. And checked in and out of the games, but I was at work tonight, so I wasn't able to lock in on the games per se, but I was able to check in and see series here and there. And I wanted to run down the bowl games. Don't know if any of these interest you based on the viewership to my channel. You guys want to hear talk about Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama and Clemson and LSU and all the big teams. And so then when I ignore some of the high-end group of 5 or some of the mid-tier or low-tier power 5s, people ask me, oh, you're ignoring X, Y, and Z, but that's the way it goes because everybody wants to hear about the big brands in the playoff races. So I appreciate you guys jumping online. I will have the call-in line open here if anybody would like to call at 860-325-3687. So Abishai wants to hear about playoff breakdowns. So basically, we provided a lot of that already. One of our most frequent videos or most recent videos was the response to Clyde Edwards-Hilaire potentially missing the playoff game against Oklahoma. 1,600-yard back with 16 touchdowns, 52 catches out of the backfield. That's going to be a huge loss for LSU as he is by far the best back that they have, the most experienced, the most reliable back that they have. But they certainly have capable, talented backups in Chris Curry, in Ty Davis-Price in particular. The LSU-Oklahoma breakdown, of course, Ronnie Perkins' suspension as the leading sack man, second in tackles for loss for Oklahoma to Kenneth Murray. That's a huge loss for the Sooners, of course, against LSU and losing their second most productive back in Ramondre Stevenson, big as well. The kid that was lost, I can't think of his name right now, on special teams, was a 5-star defensive back, but was only playing special teams this year, but a 5-star defensive back. So the Oklahoma suspensions possibly offset by the Edwards-Hilaire injury. LSU, Oklahoma, last I checked, Tigers about an 11 to 12 point favorite in that one. Clemson a 2-point favorite against Ohio State. We have released several videos on both of those matchups. So if you have any specific questions, I will certainly break down the matchups of LSU, Oklahoma, and Ohio State, Clemson, or any of the bowl matchups. But we produce about as much content as anyone when it concerns college football. So dive into the videos. Analysis from myself, also analysis from the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. I have worked on some material in which I'm going to release a video later today, meaning on Sunday, in which I looked at the players who participated in the 2016 Clemson-Ohio State 31-0 Tigers playoff shutout of the Buckeyes, the players that are still on the rosters and participated in that game. A whole lot of experience from that game back for Ohio State. Not so much for Clemson, aside from the offensive line. They had two prominent offensive linemen who played substantial minutes and snaps as freshmen, who are now all ACC performers at Clemson. So those are the two most prominent players back from the 2016 game from Clemson along the offensive line. Two of their best offensive linemen are still there. Played a ton as freshmen, two of the best in the nation right now. And then for Ohio State, there's a ton of players that played in that 2016 game, considering that you had to be a true freshman to still be around here in 2019 and not an early entry into the NFL draft to still be playing for one of these two football teams. For Ohio State, it's Damon Arnett, Malik Harrison, Benjamin Victor, KJ Hill, Jordan Fuller, Devon Hamilton. People are starting to make comments, so I'll respond to those. All right. So again, Taylor, good to see you. We got Abijay on the line. Okay, what do we got here? Kevin, what is your bet on the Rose Bowl? So you can get my predictions at the Voice of College Football Community. That's our community on Patreon. The link is in the description section of any of the videos. You can get it right there. So I don't have a selection on the Rose Bowl yet. My lean's Wisconsin. My lean is Wisconsin. That is one of the games I definitely want to see. I think it's going to be one of the better games of the postseason. And actually, before I continue, I really need to take care of one business on YouTube. So I'm going to try to talk and knock this out at the same time, because otherwise we may have an issue. All right, so that's Kevin Jolly with that question. We also have Taylor. What are your thoughts on Hugh Freeze getting Liberty its first bowl win? Liberty, a 5-point favorite, won by a touchdown in its bowl game today. Liberty's first bowl win. No one ever, I don't believe anyone has ever questioned the coaching abilities of one Hugh Freeze. His ability to go into recruits' living rooms and sell their parents on his program. Now, that's obviously been tainted based on his lifestyle, both within the football program at Ole Miss and outside of the football program at Ole Miss. So that was one of his big calling cards at Ole Miss, was great recruiter, whether he was doing it above board or not above board. I know that they've taken some precautions in hiring Hugh Freeze and keeping the reins on him so that he will stay on the straight and narrow. But yeah, I think it's a great story at Liberty that they just started playing big time, big boy college football, and they've got their first bowl win today. to finish, I believe, at 10-3. So I think it's really good for college football. Liberty had a big lead on Virginia, probably its toughest game of the season, toughest opponent, best opponent this season. I believe they led that game 17-0 before Virginia came back. So Liberty's got some football players. They're probably what are they? Probably the 60th to 70th best team in the country, something in that range. And I believe after all the bowl games are played, after the postseason is over, we will rank at the FBS teams 1 through 130 and see what you think of our rankings. Dalton, good to see you. And it truly is a good morning. Hip hop R&B lover. Do you think the playoffs will ever extend to 8 teams? You can call me John, by the way. John, so I apologize in advance that there is no way, with all the people that I have responding to the live chat and all the people that I have commenting, that I'm going to remember that your name is John. Oh, it's right there. John, I'm a knucklehead. Boom. Hip hop R&B lover, John. So I will call you John. If I can see John right there, I was just looking at the beginning of it, and I thought the rest of it was like a .com, and I didn't see the name on there. Yes, the playoffs will most likely extend to 8 teams when the current contract runs out, which is, I believe, 2025. I just think there's too much demand for it. I think that Ohio State not making it was probably one of the, and not that it's an Ohio State thing, but it's a big brand conference champion thing that a big brand twice did not make it. So it is kind of an Ohio State thing. But the Big Ten missing out on the playoffs as arguably the most powerful conference in college football, I would still say that that's, and when I say most powerful, I'm not talking about on the field. I'm talking about in terms of finances and eyeballs and TV ratings, that yes, it's going to extend out to 8 teams, and it should. First time watching, I'm a huge Ohio State fan. So I would encourage you, before you subscribe, check out the videos and what we do each and every day. I am going to guess that you have not seen so many videos on college football, and I'm talking about smart analysis on college football, not just for myself, but the guests that we bring on. We brought on 107 guests. My aunt, 33, 107 guests in 2018. And so we dive into college football every day. Basically, our May and June are just the same as it being November and December. We talk college football all the time. So hopefully you will find something you like here. Dalton, Wisconsin will beat Oregon 27-23. Sounds like a reasonable score to me. Abijay back on here. Just out of curiosity, where do you think that KJ Costello can end up? Do you think my LSU Tigers have a shot at him? Abijay, that's an interesting question, because I was just looking at that very thing, and Kevin Jolly is asking as well. I started to run through, there's just so many players to go through. I started to go through the transfer portal names just today. I was doing that, starting to do some research, and that's going to have quite an undertaking for me to go through that and produce a video of quality. There are just scads of names. I'm going to have to cut it down to the guys that are going to make an impact potentially at a new place. And then if I take it the next step, then I have to try to match those folks up with their potential next team. So for KJ Costello at LSU, I could see KJ Costello running the offense similar to Joe Burrow. I don't think he's as good as Joe Burrow, but then again, he hasn't had the offensive line protection. Joe Burrow is pretty clean in that pocket most of the time. He has had a remarkable season, but the offensive line has been amazing for LSU against fronts like Auburn and Alabama. Auburn in particular, Alabama, Florida, with a tremendous defensive front seven, and Joe Burrow has been basically clean. So KJ Costello, with the kind of weapons that LSU has, Marshall and Chase and Jefferson. Wow. So I would like to see KJ Costello play under those circumstances uh, because he hasn't been able to show off as much as he truly has based on Stanford's. Stanford has taken a serious step or two back in football. La Potencia, Mark, do you think there's a chance the Jets draft Jerry Jeudy? Well, we know the Jets will have a top 5 pick. Let's see. The Redskins and the Dolphins are the worst teams right now, although the Dolphins are winning games, aren't they? The Bengals will have the number 1 selection. I don't have the draft selection in front of me. La Potencia. I will say that I just had a conversation with a big Jets fan today, and there's no question that Sam Darnold, much like we just talked about with KJ Costello, it's difficult to rate Sam Darnold's performance because of the lack of playmakers and him running for his life, and he's not a running quarterback. So they need to get him weapons, and Jerry Jeudy is just about as good as they come. So, yes, the Jets will be eyeing Jerry Jeudy. They need playmakers. Taylor, do you believe Miami and Texas fan bases are arrogant or delusional? Okay. Taylor, I believe that although the distribution is not perfect or even across the board, that most fan bases are both delusional and arrogant and unrealistic, but not everyone. You can take any fan base in any sport, and I can certainly point you to those people that are reasonable and are classy and humble, and then I can point you to the other side, the side that you're alluding to. I don't know that Miami and Texas fans are any more arrogant or delusional than any other fan base, but because of the plight of their football programs in the last 10 years and because of the pride that they have in those teams and their history, they have probably had to show themselves to be more delusional than others. I posted a video a few weeks ago, and I got to say that I was surprisingly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. It is 2:30 in the morning. I was pleasantly surprised that Miami fans took it as well as they did. I basically pointed out, using the numbers, the metrics, and the comparisons across the country, that Miami's football program has been marginal, meaning 56% winning percentage since 2005. That's a long time. That's 14 football seasons. 56% winning percentage. That they have ranked with the mid-tier teams in the other conferences. They have basically been Georgia Tech or Louisville or Minnesota. They have been those type of programs over the past 15 years. Texas, of course, since 2009. Then they had another nice year in 2010 under Mac Brown. Then they started to slide. And under Charlie Strong, were basically under 500. I believe I would have to go through. They were probably right at 500 under Charlie Strong. Had the one big season under Tom Herman in 2018. And Tom Herman is producing, and he is recruiting at a top 5 level. He has yet to produce that. Newbie Doobie, thank you so much for the contribution. I cannot express to you how much I appreciate your contribution. Newbie Doobie has an amazing suggestion right there, because just think about it. I am appreciative of every like, every comment, every view, every time you share my videos on social media, because we believe that we're doing a nice job. Do I do as good a job here as I would like to? Nope. But I'm pouring 50 hours in at another job every week. So I'm doing the best I can to supply the kind of content that I can be proud of and that is serving what you guys want as hardcore smart fans. And once I'm able to do this all the time, then you cannot believe what we will be able to do. So Newbie Doobie has caught the vision. So basically what he's saying here, I believe, is that one contribution per month would just be phenomenal. And once we get into the off season, I should take more time. I did this a couple of years ago to outline the vision for you. For those of you who are interested beyond the college football talk, interested in what we're doing with the channel. So, Newbie Doobie, I thank you so much for the contribution to the super chat. And we'll remind everyone else before I get back to all the comments that if you love college football, this is the place to be. Subscribe. Please subscribe. And then also that the super chat is on. Now, if you would like some payback, some reimbursement for, let's say, your $5 per month, you go to Patreon. The link is in the description section of any of the videos. You get my predictions every week. But way beyond that, what we're offering is an exclusive live stream every week per request. So you've got to request it. But if you would like a live stream, not just a live stream like we're doing right here, a live stream in which you come on and talk to me directly and we kick around college football. And this was suggested to me by 20 or 25 people. And so I did think it was going to take off. And we have done it 8 times. So we have had that many requests. But I would love to do it each and every week, bring you guys on and just funnel you guys on to talk college football, maybe 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Bring on you guys to talk college football directly. That would be tremendous. I would love to do that. I would much rather do that than sit on here and just hear myself talk and answer your questions. But I do love to answer your questions as well. The transfer portal, again, Kevin asked about it and Abijay asked about it. And ironically, I was just looking at it today thinking, okay, how do I handle this transfer portal? There are a zillion names. So I've got to weed through it. I've got to grab the names that matter. And you guys know me. I'm not just talking about stars. I'm talking about guys that caught 8 passes last year. That we'll talk about any player that has potential impact on another team and where they could possibly go. So I will get to that. Believe me, I've got a list of content ideas. All right. Not us, Dexter. Okay, leaving now. 18 playoff will destroy college football regular season. We are so fortunate that there's not an 18 playoff this year. The conference championship losers, ugh. Okay. I will explain at another time in which the 18 playoff would not destroy college football. It would actually enhance college football. I do understand your comment. I do understand your thought process here. So you can't look at 1 year and say this format of a playoff would work because we need to implement it because this is what happened this year. You need to look at year after year after year after year after year. You can't just say, and this is typically the response, okay, this is what happened this year. This is what went wrong this year. Therefore, we need to extend it 1 or 2 spots to get those teams in. No, we need to look at every year. We need to look at what is consistently happening. We also have to look at what is fair, what's equitable, what's good for the game. And that would be to go to 8 teams because you are representing every conference. There are not enough games played between the conferences to accurately evaluate and judge all of the conferences. It's not the NFL. We don't have enough overlapping games between these teams. It actually, because of the number of games, 16, and the reduced size of the pool, 32 teams in the NFL, it actually makes more sense in the NFL to say, for example, this year, the NFC East is awful. The winner of the NFC East does not deserve to make the playoffs. We'll just leave them out. That makes more sense because we've seen the Eagles and the Cowboys, who are both, I believe, 7-7 right now. We've seen both of those teams enough to be able to judge accurately against the rest of the league, against common opponents, that they're not good enough to make the playoffs and to be able to make that judgment. We could actually do that in the NFL. But in college football, for us to say Oregon or Utah or whomever it is in that particular season is not good enough, what do we have to go on? What do we have to go on? This is what we have to go on. Oregon had game control on Auburn at a neutral site the first week of the season for about 50 to 55 minutes. They led 21-6. They were missing their best playmakers at wide receiver. They blew the game. Credit Auburn for coming back and winning 21-16, but Oregon led that game, or 27-21. Oregon led that game 21-6. They had game control. They lost it fair and square, but they had game control without some of their best playmakers on offense. Neutral site week 1. That's all we have to go on, except for the eyeball test and connecting the dots. A plus B equals C. They played them, then they played them, they played them, and they played them. Therefore, we know the Pac-12 is not that good. But in terms of on the field competition, the only thing we have to go by is an Oregon-Auburn game in week 1. Utah didn't play anyone outside of the conference that counts. And the rest of the Pac-12 was not under consideration. So that's all we had to go on this season to eliminate the Pac-12 from participating in the college football playoff. That's it. Basically, teams are eliminating themselves from the college football playoff by losing to other teams in their own conference. So if you follow me, we're making a judgment on these conferences based on teams losing to other teams in the conference. And we can spin that narrative any way we want. We can say when teams beat each other in their own conference, that's either the conference is good because it's just so good and deep and it's so fair and it's so equitable and it's so balanced, or we can say that conference is no good because the best teams in the conference cannot go unscathed through the conference and they keep losing to the mid-tier teams in the conference. We need 8 teams. There needs to be there needs to not necessarily be equal representation. There needs to be representation from all the conferences. And we can then reward the better conferences with wildcard spots. We could go, so I understand your point. Again, you want the elite teams in it. So consider this. In the NFL, 12 out of 32 teams make the playoffs. That's about 40% of the league. In the NBA, 16 of 32 teams make the playoffs, 50% of the league. In Major League Baseball, 10 out of 30 teams, 33% of the league make the playoffs. In college football, we have 4 out of 130. If we double that to 8 out of 130, that is 6%. 6%. So if that's not elite, if that is still not elite, it is. All right. John asks, thanks for the answer, man. First time watcher who also loves college football. USC is my team. Cool. Why don't you cover pro football instead? You obviously hate college football. Leave it alone. Yes, I've often been accused of hating college football. Okay. You see these pictures. You see the pictures in the frames on the wall behind me. Mr. Dexter. So what these are these are magazines of college football, whether that be the Sporting News or Sports Illustrated or a zillion other magazines. So since about 1978, I have kept every basically sports magazine, but we'll focus on college football magazine in existence. And I'm sure I might be wrong. You may be an encyclopedia, sir, when it comes to college football. You may be. I know that there are people on this planet that know more about college football than I do. I haven't met them yet, but I'm sure they exist. But if I hate college football, man, I am putting up the most amazing front in the history of mankind. I am the biggest fraud alive. I am the best actor and the biggest fraud alive. I have Peach Bowl scores memorized from 1979 for whatever reason. But I hate college football. You're right. I hate college football. Anthony, good to see you. Again, newbie doobie. We appreciate not only your contribution, that you are encouraging others, and you get it. You get it. You get that. Yeah, you just get it. You just get it. So we are focusing on this. I love college football, and that's why I get on here at 2:30 in the morning and talk college football. And that's why I work for 50 hours a week, but then I put in another 50 hours a week. That's why I work 100 hours a week and talk college football all the time, because I love college football. But to make this sustainable, it has to be a business. And so I am working my passion into a business. That's what we're doing. Bottom line. Task Money 870. Will the Fiesta Bowl show if Clemson is really for real? The haven't played nobody adage aside, the play of the competition was poor, horrible tackling, blown coverages, and talent gaps. Okay. I will say this for Clemson. Clemson, having played that schedule and showing up at undefeated status right now and being untested, is a different untested than had it been somebody else. Because we know that this collection of players, aside from the defensive front, aside from some misses here and there, Hunter Renfro's gone. And again, the defense has largely been turned over, the entire defensive line, and key players in the secondary. Trayvon McMullen, for example, gone. Hunter Renfro again, and others. That it's a different team to a certain extent, but it's probably, I'm guessing that the starters on the Clemson football team are about 70 to 75% back from 2018. So it's largely the same team. So this is a tested team, a battle tested team overall, not this season, but having defeated Notre Dame and Alabama as they did in dominant fashion last year, we know more about this Clemson team than, let's say, had this been Virginia, that played a similarly weak schedule in the ACC, did not play anybody out of conference. Virginia played who? Notre Dame. They played Notre Dame. But let's say that was their version of Texas A&M. Better, but let's say Virginia just shot out of nowhere, dominated its schedule, other than beating North Carolina 21-20, and won the ACC against a bunch of 5 and 6 win teams, and was in the playoff right now, undefeated at 13-0. We would be questioning Virginia, but we're not questioning Clemson because we know that they're that talented and they've done it when it's mattered, when it's counted. Most of those players have. But different year, and that's why I firmly believe that they should be the third seed. Why Dabo Swinney insists on calling himself and his team disrespected is ridiculous and stupid. And he's trying to prove a point, and he's also trying to get through to his team. I get it. I know what he's trying to do. I know what he is doing, but it's a farce. His team's not disrespected. There are 3 undefeated teams. So since there are 3 undefeated teams, we've got to go to the level of dominance, and then we've got to go to the level of dominance against the schedule. And Clemson by far has played the weakest schedule of the 3, therefore they should be the 3 seed. If they were moved behind teams that had 1 loss, I would understand his argument, but his argument is paper thin and it's pathetic. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, sir. Rashay Keeling, do you think Miami's reputation still holds weight, or are we Notre Dame after Lou Holtz? Rashay, you're not going to like this, but you're not even Notre Dame after Lou Holtz, because Bob Davie took over, and that was Miami. That was the correlation with Miami, that Bob Davie and Ty Willingham years. That was Miami football, playing a lot of 7-5 seasons. But even Ty Willingham had some better years than what we've seen Miami do in the last 15 years. Then Brian Kelly took over, and Notre Dame has made it to a national championship game. They have made it to a college football playoff, and they have generally posted 9-3, 10-2 kind of years. So Miami is not even Notre Dame after Lou Holtz. Does Miami's reputation still hold weight? I think that depends on who you talk to. So I got to think that a large portion of people watching college football here in 2019 grew up in the 80s, and they grew up in the early 90s, and Miami was Miami, winning national championships over and over and over from 1983 through 92, 91, Alabama 92. That goes back to who was it? That goes back. Newbie Doobie, another $5. Thank you so much. I appreciate it more than you will know. Thank you so much for the contribution. Whoever said I hated college football. Our guy, Not Use Dexter, who comments all the time and probably, I don't understand your comment. I know you don't like my 18 playoff, but we can disagree without you calling me out for not liking college football or hating college football. Leave it alone. But where were we on Mr. Keeling's point here? Yeah, so Miami, it depends on who you talk to in regards to reputation. If you're talking about their performance on the field, it is not even close to Notre Dame post Lou Holtz. I'm going to make a guess that post Lou Holtz, which would be 1996, Miami, of course, had its run from 2000 to 2002 in which they were dominant. But aside from that, they've won 55% of their games. Notre Dame's won a lot more than 55% of its games since then, more like 75%. That's a huge difference over the span of 20 plus years. Newbie Doobie, thank you so much. I'll pay another $5 if you tell me what you think about the FSU Arizona State matchup. Thanks for the you the man. Thank you. Arizona State, Florida State. I've not made a prediction yet, but I think Arizona State is much better prepared to win this game. I really love Jaden Daniels as a quarterback. I think he's exceptional. They do have their two best playmakers on offense not playing. Eno Benjamin, 1,000-yard rusher, and Brandon Ayuk will not play. He caught 65 or 70 balls this year. Tremendous wide receiver. So Arizona State's missing its two best playmakers. On the flip side, Florida State without Cam Akers. That hurts because Kalen Laborn will most likely have to carry the load, and he's not accustomed to that. I think Arizona State's just in from a mentality standpoint, unless the coaching staff at Florida State is really going to pull together and convince this team to play together. And we saw this with trying to think who we saw this with. We have seen this in the past where a coach has taken off and a assistant coach and his staff have rallied together and really given the team kind of that galvanizing force, that togetherness that, hey, it's us against the world. Our coach left us, but we're going to fight. We're going to finish this thing, and we're going to pull together and see this through and think of this as a mission. So we've seen this in the past. So Florida State's going to have to be able to do that. I just like Arizona State in this matchup. I've not made an official prediction, but the Arizona State team that we saw against Oregon, of course, would beat Florida State, and we've not seen Florida State play that kind of game. So Arizona State has certainly shown itself to be able to step up its game and play well against a really good team in Oregon. And they had one other game like that. Of course, they lost to UCLA by 10 points as well, so that's possible. But Florida State's best game this season was what? losing to Virginia when they couldn't punch it in inside the 5, losing by a touchdown, 1 score to Virginia. That might have been Florida State's best game. They lost to Wake Forest by 2 on the road. They led Boise State by 18 before they blew that game. Florida State's best effort this season was a loss on the road to Virginia. We have seen Arizona State beat Oregon. We've seen them play well against Utah. So Arizona State has played better against better competition than Florida State. They're missing their 2 best playmakers. Cam Akers, though, missing for Florida State. So I like Arizona State. I'm leaning Arizona State, heavily leaning Arizona State at this point. John, Sam is dual to an extent. He ran a little more in college. Surprising he doesn't use his legs more like Lamar and Allen. Yep. Yeah, so he is surprisingly quick and nimble, and he's a big guy. He's a big guy, so he can take a hit and bounce guys off. He surprised me. The first time I really saw him play like that was in the Rose Bowl against Penn State. Anthony has a very difficult question. Mark, who was the best wide receiver in the Alabama receiver corps? Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, or Devontae Smith? Devontae Smith has been hampered by injuries. That has hindered his productivity. For anybody who's going to compare their statistics, and Jerry Jeudy has been the most productive guy by far. That is a great question. That just goes beyond my recollection of watching those guys play, because I really haven't taken it to that level of comparison. Speed, size, hands, route running, ability to high point the football and outfight defenders. Those are the first 5 things that come to mind for me in evaluating a wide receiver. Would be, yes, their hands in traffic, high pointing the football, outfighting defenders for the football, route running, size, speed, quickness, burst, ability out of the cut. Just thinking about watching Alabama football, and I see the Tide play 5 to 6 times a year, I'm going to go I was about to rate them a certain way, and then now I'm thinking about Ruggs really splitting the defense at times after the catch. I've seen a number of times where Henry Ruggs has just taken SEC secondaries and made them look silly by just splitting an angle that should not have been split, where the defense had the angle on him and he still was able to outrun SEC defensive backs to the end zone. That is a tough call. That is a great question, Anthony. My gut tells me it's Jeudy 1, Ruggs 2, and Smith 3. Tough call, though. Kevin says that Arizona State is going to crush Florida State. And again, Newbie Doobie gets it, not just because he is contributing here, but his first comment about seeing the vision of the channel. I appreciate that, Newbie Doobie. Test Money 870. This isn't too bad for 4 o'clock in the morning with 56 on the line, or 3:08 in the morning. Will the Fiesta Bowl show if Clemson is really for real? We already covered that. My apologies. Sometimes this application that I use, it shifts and then I lose track. You know it, Unknown Faith. Late night, early morning. Part 2, Ohio State, on the other hand, has shown their greatness and still won by double digits when tested. Is Clemson for real, or is the ACC really that bad? The ACC is really that bad, but Clemson is really that good. So again, the difference in the Clemson evaluation that is different than if another team had done what Clemson has done this year is that we've seen Clemson do it against elite competition last year and in previous seasons. And we know that the talent, the recruited talent, is that high. So Clemson is different than another team in its position, having played a bad schedule and dominated most of it, 12 out of 13 games. So there's a difference. All right. Let me see if I can find where I was. Wow. Sean Jackson, I appreciate the contribution, sir. Would expanding to an 8 or 16 team playoff stop the bowl defections by NFL players and help save the bowl games? Well, that is a great point. It would, to a certain extent, it would curb it. I also think that while it would curb it to a certain extent, there would be less attention given to the playoff or less value given to the playoff. It was 16 teams. Then there would also be this potential downfall that a player that's concerned about their injury status for the NFL draft would see the road of a 3-game playoff. So if there's 16 teams, round number 1 cuts it to 8, round number 2 cuts it to 4, then you play you're playing 3 games. So instead of playing 2 games, no, you're playing 4 games. So instead of playing 2 games in a 14 playoff to win the championship, playing 3 in an 8-team field, you're playing a 4-game playoff at 16 teams. So players might actually start to sit out more. I hate to say it, but think about it. If they're thinking, I've got the chance of getting injured 4 times, the chances of me getting injured are 4 times what they were. And considering that I'm playing against the best teams in the country, the most physical, most likely the most physical teams in the country, versus playing a bowl game against Indiana in another scenario, that could hurt. I hate to say it, but it's coming out of my mouth as I think about it. That could hurt, even though there's a playoff to be won, and players will respect that part of it as they are now. If they have to play that many games, if they've got to play 4 games in a 16-team playoff, they may say, I'm out. I know it's for a championship, but I'm out. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I've got to say, everybody, that my heart wanted to be here doing a live stream a number of times today during the bowl games, talking bowl action, talking about all the previews that we've posted, talking about the college football playoffs, talking about everything, the transfer portal, talking about everything, but I had to go to work. So I wanted to be here doing live streams. That's what I wanted. I'm not going to be able to be on live too much before Christmas, but then once we hit December 26th, I will be here a ton, which leads me to, just to keep you informed, over the next few days, what you're going to see out of me is a Notre Dame video, Arizona State, LSU, Syracuse. We will have our Ohio State guests, Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts and Tony Gerdeman from the Ozone, and also Kevin Noon from Buckeye Grove. We're going to have them on live from the Fiesta Bowl site in Tempe or wherever they are, Glendale, Arizona. That is going to be at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. 1 o'clock Eastern time, live Ohio State show this Friday. Newbie Doobie. How much will it take to say who will win? Now, who will win the Clemson versus Ohio State PlayStation Bow? All right, let's see. Yes, Task Money 870, as we've talked about in recent videos and really laid it out in the numbers and also the analysis and discussion, both coming from myself and various guests that I've had on. There is no question that Ohio State, against the likes of Wisconsin twice, Michigan, Penn State, those teams in particular, is battle tested this year. But Clemson, under these circumstances, playing for a national championship, battle tested in previous seasons. Let's take a junior who has played for Clemson, because I just noted many of you weren't on. We only had like 5 people on the live stream when we first started. I am producing a video here in which I have broken down the Clemson and Ohio State rosters just to get an idea, more than an idea. I have completely outlined who played in that 2016 playoff game for both Clemson and Ohio State, who are still on the rosters and will be playing this Saturday night. It's quite a few for Ohio State. It's 2 prominent players for Clemson. And the reason I bring that up is that these Clemson players, despite not playing in a difficult game outside of the North Carolina game, 21-20, have not been battle tested this season. If you're a junior right now for Clemson and you played significant snaps and minutes as a freshman, you played in 2016 against Ohio State. No, well, I'm sorry. You played in 2017 against Alabama, lost, and then you had that national championship run last year. The Ohio State players did not have that. Anyone who's a junior, there's a handful of players who have played in a playoff for Ohio State. KJ Hill, Benjamin Victor, Jordan Fuller, Malik Harrison to a certain extent, Devon Hamilton, Robert Landers. Okay. Anthony, who would win a neutral site 2001 Hurricanes or 2019 LSU Tigers? Okay. If you believe that the athletes are constantly getting bigger, better, faster, stronger, all of that, I know that there is a certain bias that we all have toward our generation. So for those of us who are watching college football right now, especially for those of us who are more like in the 30 to 35 age range, that consider 2001 football to be the same as 2019 football, then you are ranking those teams and rating those teams similarly. But just think about that. For those of you that think like that, you would have to say the same about 2001 teams versus 82 teams. Do you feel the same way? 2001 versus 2019, that's 18 years difference, or 1983 and 2001. You follow me there? So I think we could all agree, and I stick up for, believe me, I've got a 23-year-old son who is constantly making fun of players from the 50s and 60s and so forth. I am constantly sticking up for those guys for various reasons. But there is no question that athletes are getting bigger and better and faster and stronger all the time. So if we take that out of the equation and just say which team was better against its era, against its competition, there's no question that 2000 Miami is better than 2019 LSU. That was a completely loaded NFL team. And I'm not just talking about guys that made rosters, like guys that were dominant, impact players at the next level. I need to see the LSU defense play better, more consistently for an extended period of time. I also don't think the running back position at LSU, despite a very fine season turned in by Clyde Edwards-Helaire, comes close to the depth at running back at a high star level of that Miami team. That was ridiculous. I am probably way behind here. Anthony Whalen, 6 teams and give the top 2 seeds a bye. Oh, Anthony. Anthony, please, no buys. Let me explain this, please. We don't want buys in the college football playoff. In the NFL, it is okay to award teams buys because they earned it. They earned it against similar competition. So they're all playing in the NFL. They're playing basically the same schedule. Within eyelashes of each other, they are playing the same teams over and over and over. The talent gap and the difference in teams is that much. So you can trust. You can trust for the most part. Yes, there are easier schedules in the NFL. There are bad divisions and better divisions. Yes. But you can generally very decidedly trust a 14-2 NFL record versus a team that went 11-5 and say this 14-2 team has earned a bye over the 11-5 team. Okay? We can't do that in college football. You may think you can do it, but you give me any year, let's go through year by year by year by year. First of all, it's going to be impossible for you to select the 6 teams that should make it. That's step number 1. Select the 6 teams, Anthony, every year. And I will, first of all, be able to raise a team or 2 or 3 that have just as good a resume as the teams that make the bottom 2 or 3 spots in your playoff, number 1. So it's going to be difficult for you to even select 6 teams fairly. Go back every year. I would love to see your teams that are going to make this 6-team playoff, number 1. Number 2, to your point right there, you go ahead and select the 2 teams that should get the buys. And I will easily be able to tell you why other teams are just as deserving. And that is a huge advantage, an enormous advantage. Can you imagine if right now LSU was able to just play in the championship game and Clemson and Ohio State had to play each other to get there? Well, that's it's a huge advantage just from a probability standpoint that you've actually got to go out and play one of the best teams in the country just to get to the next step to the championship game. So you are risking your season with a 50% chance that you're not going to make it to play that team that just was gifted a spot in the championship game or the next round. Okay? That's first and foremost. Just you are giving one team 100% probability, a 100% certainty that they're going to be in the next playoff game. You're telling the other 2 teams, well, 4 teams in this case, you're telling them you have a 50% chance. For whatever reason, you're eliminating half the field and letting the 2 move on to the next round. So it's unfair from that standpoint. That's obvious. The second standpoint is you're beating up the teams that have to advance. You are beating them up against one of the best teams in the country. So they have to not only win the game, which is very difficult against one of the best teams in the country, they are going to get beat up and injured to some degree in that game and then play a fresh team that got to sit and was guaranteed a spot in the next playoff round. That does not work. And I'm telling you, Anthony, if you go year to year, take any season that you want. Please take every season. Give me a list. Send it to markrogerstv at gmail. And I will do a video on this. Send your list of your 6 teams that will make the playoff and which 2 teams will get buys. Go year by year by year. Let's start in 2019, 18, 17, 16. Go back as far as you want. And send your list to markrogerstv at gmail. There it is. And I will shoot a video on this when the season's over. Okay? We'll do that. How do I make a contribution? This is the best show. Anthony, thank you so much. And I appreciate you allowing me to rail on your system. So that is not, I did not mean that to be disrespectful in any way. So please understand that. We're here for the debate. I certainly have had a number of people raise issues with things that I've said or systems that I've had or rankings, and I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the debate. We can do it in a friendly way. Anthony, that is a tremendous question. Obviously, you can contribute right here at the super chat. So maybe some people online would be able to tell you the way to do that better than I can, but I believe that in the live chat stream that there's a $sign. So in the stream that you see everybody's comments scrolling down below, you see a $sign. You can contribute that way, or I will be providing a video, and I keep saying this, and I'm going to have to wait till the off season. I'm going to outline all the ways in which you can help us. But you can track me down at Venmo. I've got a Venmo account. I've got a PayPal account. Just look up Mark Rogers TV. Mark Rogers TV on Venmo or PayPal to directly pay into our channel. So thank you so much for that. Newton Rhodes, I hate it too. That's why I'm here. Hate. Absolutely. This is why we talk college football at 3:15 in the morning, Newton. We hate it. Dalton. Guys, Mark doesn't hate college football. He is unbiased and always has a logical standpoint on teams, games, and players. Dalton, thank you so much. That's the attempt. I will say it this way. I believe that it's humanly impossible to be unbiased. Like if you took every measurement of a human being, we're built emotionally. It's impossible for us to be perfectly unbiased. First of all, we don't have enough information in our brain to process everything perfectly. Number two, we're feeling people. We feel. We're emotional people. So what I attempt to do is do my very, very best to be unbiased. It's impossible, but I come very close. And if anything, I try to take what my natural biases are and I try to compensate for that. So I appreciate that, Dalton. 12/22, 32:45. Boy, that's a complicated handle, but I appreciate it. And you know what? I've never seen your handle before, so here it comes. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, left-handed. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Would love to know who you root for and how long you've been watching. What do you think about the deciding factor of conference champs being overall record, not conference record? Take the champs. That would mostly eliminate the 9-3s and 8-4s. There would be some 10-2s. Okay. (12/22, 32:45). The reason that conference champions are determined based on overall record or based on conference record is because those are the games that matter. Those are the games that can be measured equally. That's the closed experiment per se. That's the silo. That's the category. So the out of conference records, the out of conference games are so haphazard. Case in point, USC, Utah. Okay. Last year, USC won the division. No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Utah won the division. They have the last 2 years. Okay. In conference, they obviously play just about the same exact schedule. Utah and USC both play everybody else in their division. That's 5 games. Plus, they play each other. So that's basically 6 exact games. And then they play 3 of the 6 teams in the other division, and some of that overlap. So they either play 7 or 8 of their 9 conference games are exactly the same. Sounds like a fair way to be able to compare 2 teams, right? They're playing the exact same opponents within 90%. And probably the other game is probably so indistinguishable, it doesn't matter. Like USC played Cal and Utah played Washington State. Sometimes it matters. Sometimes there's a big difference. Utah may have been scheduled against Washington while USC got to play Oregon State. That happens. And I've outlined why that should be erased from college football scheduling. So I'll hit on that during the offseason as well. But if you've watched me only for a short period of time and missed that during an offseason, I have fixed college football scheduling because it's not fair. It needs to be fixed both out of conference and in conference. So again, getting back to your point, I get it. That's the way it's done in the NFL. But the NFL, again, is a closed population. Only 32 teams. The schedules are so close. But what would be fair about evaluating Utah and USC based on their non-conference games? They both played BYU. That's fine. But USC played Notre Dame and Fresno State, who was coming off a season in which they won the Mountain West Conference. Utah played FCS and MAC teams. So to even consider going to that format to decide a conference champion, 12, 22nd, 32, 45, we would have to fix non-conference scheduling so it's equitable, which I've got a system to do that. So we could do that, but we would have to implement my system or something that's logical. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you pointing Newton in the right direction. Thank you so much. Newton, I hate this guy. Clemson comes strong with no injuries. Biggest reason why they will be favored. They are favored, Anthony, by 2. I think they're generally favored because they've got a track record in the playoff as champions. They have a coach, they've got a coaching staff, they have a quarterback, they have a team that has been there and done it and proven that they can handle the pressure, that they can handle the stage, they can handle the adjusted schedule, everything involved with going to a national playoff. Ohio State has yet to prove that. If we were basing Clemson versus Ohio State just based on their level of dominance versus their schedule, Ohio State wins that comparison because they were just as dominant as Clemson was against a much tougher schedule. But Vegas, and rightfully so, is evaluating Clemson and also taking into consideration these guys have been there and done that. So I understand Clemson being a 2-point favorite. I think that's reasonable. AP3X Predator is pointing out that Oklahoma has half of their roster missing, which would be Ronnie Perkins, their best defensive lineman, leads the team in sacks, second in tackles for loss. Running back Ramondre Stevenson, their second leading rusher, and who was generally carrying the ball 5 to 10 times per game down the stretch with a yards per carry average through the roof, and a special teams player that I can't remember his name, but he was a 5-star out of high school and is currently a freshman and a pretty impact player on special teams. Absolutely. Better coach, Bobby Bowden or Nick Saban? Okay. I'm going to make a comparison that's similar to the Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady comparison. I believe that based on just watching football and watching these two guys play over and over and over and over and over forever, that Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Tom Brady. If somebody would argue with me and say Tom Brady's a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers, I totally respect that opinion. I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's a slam dunk. I'm not saying that it's an easy evaluation to make. It's not. I just believe that Aaron Rodgers is a more gifted quarterback and a better quarterback than Tom Brady by that much. But who's the more accomplished quarterback? There's no comparison. And sometimes I make that distinction when people ask me who's the best quarterback of all time. I say, well, Tom Brady is the most accomplished quarterback of all time. There's no question about that. He's won 6 Super Bowls and made 9 appearances in the Super Bowl. He's the most accomplished quarterback of all time. Now, the greatest quarterback of all time, if you're talking about the best player, there's a debate. I think it's Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to apply that logic to Bobby Bowden and Nick Saban. In terms of the most accomplished, that's arguable because Bowden has more wins. He coached longer. Saban has yet to get to those lofty compilation statistics. And Bowden had to take a program at Florida State, and we often forget this, that Bobby Bowden took over Florida State not as Florida State. Bobby Bowden basically took over what Bill Snyder took over at Kansas State. Bobby Bowden took over in the 1975 or 76 season was his first season at Florida State. He took over Vanderbilt. He took over Colorado. He took over Kansas. Maybe not at the very bottom. He didn't take over Rutgers. He didn't take over the Kansas of 2 or 3 years ago, but close to it. And by 1979, they were playing in a New Year's Day bowl game as a team facing Oklahoma, who was playing for a national championship or a share, possibly. The vote went Alabama's way. But Oklahoma in back-to-back Orange Bowls in 1979 and 1980. And within a couple of years was competing itself for national championships. Bobby Bowden, what he built at Florida State early, and if you understand what Florida State was at that time, they were nothing. Yeah, big-time school getting big-time recruits, but in comparison to the elite, they were nothing. They were looked down upon. Bobby Bowden said, we're going to go to Nebraska and play. We're going to go to Ohio State and play. We're going to go to, where else did they go? They went there. Those are the two that I remember them. They went to Michigan in the late 80s. When those teams would not make the return trip, they refused. Nebraska, we're not going to Florida State. Ohio State, we're not going to Tallahassee. Penn State, the same thing. Michigan, the same thing. Would sign series with Florida State and not go to Tallahassee. Florida State went to Ohio State in 1980 and 81. Check that. 81 and 82. I can recite the scores, 34-17 and 36-27. They went to Columbus. They had to sign a contract with Ohio State and could not get the Buckeyes to come to Tallahassee. And they went up there and beat them twice. And they were an underdog both times, and they beat them. They went to Michigan later in that decade, back-to-back years, and had to play Michigan on the road. Could not get Michigan to come to Tallahassee. Nebraska, the same thing. Bobby Bowden built Florida State football. Nick Saban never completely built a program to the extent that Bobby Bowden did. Now, LSU fans and college football fans, you may be shocked to know that LSU in the year 2000 was not the LSU of right now. LSU in the year 2000 was basically LSU then was Minnesota. They were Louisville. They were what is currently Tennessee, but what is more traditionally Missouri. LSU in 2000, they were Arizona State. They were going 7-5, 6-5. They played 11 games a lot of the times back then. 7-4, 5-6. I covered the SEC for a CBS station. I was a sports director at a CBS station from 1994 through 2000. So I was on the sidelines and in the press box for SEC games every week. And LSU would come to town and with Kevin Falk and company and would have pretty talented teams, but they would be 4-3, 2-4, 4-2. They were rarely considered anywhere close to the elite in college football until Nick Saban. So he didn't have to make the lift that Bobby Bowden did, but he still turned LSU from top 40 program to top 10 program. In his second season, won the SEC surprisingly, was not considered a preseason favorite to win the SEC, won the SEC, beat Illinois in the Sugar Bowl, and then they took off from there. National championship in 2003, and left Les Miles with a national championship roster that he won in 2007. That's a tough call. I would go with Nick Saban. If you gave them in their prime, you gave Bobby Bowden a team, the same exact team, if it was feasible to measure two teams and say they're exactly the same, and you gave me Nick Saban, gave you Bobby Bowden, or vice versa, and had them coach those teams and gave them 6 weeks of bowl preparation, I'll take Nick Saban's team. Bobby Bowden was more program CEO, tremendous coach, but still more program CEO. Saban more program CEO, but still nuts and bolts great X's and O's coach. Newton, yes. Bobby birthed the program. Absolutely. He made the program out of nothing, as these guys are pointing out, and as I just tried to explain. Saban was just handed the keys to a machine. Well, that's not entirely true. He was handed the keys to a machine that went 3-8, 5-7, 7-6, 10-3. But if you look at the seasons prior to Nick Saban at Alabama, yeah, they popped up with a 10-3, won the Cotton Bowl in 2005. But generally, from 2001 to when Saban arrived in 2007, Alabama football was not Alabama football. They were Kansas State, Arizona State, Minnesota. That's what they were. So he did some work too. And at LSU, as I just pointed out. Go back and look at LSU's records prior to Nick Saban. Look at their winning percentage in the 1990s, I guarantee, was about 55 to 58%. They were not contending for SEC championships before Nick Saban at either school. Prince, good to see you. Ironically, Anthony Whalen is whining about someone else whining. Oh, let's not get into Dabo. Plenty of coaches have been handed a machine and guided it to a crash and burn. Only one has ever won 5 championships in a single decade, Saban. That wasn't the point I made necessarily. Sean, again, appreciate the comment. Thank you so much again for the comment and for the contribution. David, thank you so much. For those of you who get on here and get in the comments section and consistently encourage others to hit the like button and subscribe, thank you so much. Anthony, Miami's run started in November of 1981 when they upset Penn State at home in a tropical depression. Happy we got revenge in the 1987 Fiesta Bowl. Very true. Also, 1 year prior to that, Miami finished in the top 10 and finished 9-2 after defeating Virginia Tech in the Peach Bowl. So Miami was good for a couple of years before 1983. Sometimes people think that 1983 Miami came just completely out of nowhere. If you have paid attention to college football before 1983, you knew that Miami was good. You knew that they were 9-3, 10-2, good. They weren't expected. Nobody expected them to win a national championship, but they were a good program. They had built something. Howard Schnellenberger could coach. Prince, first round playoff games are rarely even close. Imagine 1 versus 8. Okay. We need 8. Anthony, bold defections will always happen as they are a personal decision based on many factors. Newbie doobie, the ACC is better than the Pac-12. Let's do this, newbie doobie. Take out a piece of paper, or if you get on your laptop, rank the teams in the ACC 1 through 14. Then rank the teams in the Pac-12 1 through 12. Unfortunately, we've got an uneven number of teams. So the most fair way to do it is to either take the 2 middle teams out of the Pac-12 or take like the 4th worst and then take the 4th best in the Pac-12 and take them out. Do something equitable. Then match up those 2 conferences and see what you get. Match them up, 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, etc. Now, of course, 1 versus whatever in the Pac-12, yes, Clemson, 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 Clemson all day. After that, just think, who is the second best team in the ACC? That team's not very good. Now, I will say that the ACC is deep, not good deep. They're mediocre deep. So they don't have a whole lot of awful teams. Who's awful in the ACC? Well, this year Syracuse was. Georgia Tech was. But that's pretty much it in terms of really bad teams. But who was good in the ACC? Who was top 10 good? Nobody, aside from Clemson. Who was top 15 good? Nobody. Who was top 20 good? Nobody. Who was top 25 good? Probably nobody. Who was top 30 good? Maybe Virginia. Maybe top 35 or 40 good. Virginia, Wake. Maybe Miami. Maybe Louisville. Maybe. Who's top 10 good in the Pac-12? Maybe Oregon, maybe Utah. I'm not going to say that they're definitely top 10 teams. Top 15? Yes. All right. After that, top 25 good? USC. Add them. It's close, but add USC. And probably no one else. Then once you get to that top 40 where Virginia is and Louisville and Wake, well, you do have Oregon and Utah top 15 good, and you've got USC top 25 good. And then you can start to filter in Arizona State, Washington, who we saw dismantle a very good Boise State team, 38-7 tonight. Newbie doobie, it's a tough call to make that the ACC is better than the Pac-12. I hate to disagree with you on this one, but I believe that the Pac-12 is better than the ACC. Not by a ton. The SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12. We're missing the Big 12, but okay. Eli Arbeza, good job, Liberty, winning our first ever bowl game. Let's go, Flames. The Big Ten and the ACC are close. The Big Ten and the ACC, Hugo. Really? The Big Ten and the ACC. The ACC may win another national championship. Yes, but that is not rating the entire conference. Okay, when you say that the ACC is close to the Big Ten, take out Ohio State, take out Clemson. Let's take out the best. Where in the ACC? Where's Michigan? Where's Wisconsin? Where's Minnesota? Where's Penn State? Where are those teams? Even Iowa. Where's the Iowa team in the ACC? Iowa is better than everybody else in the ACC. They are. I say that without question. Wisconsin, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa are all better than the second best team in the ACC. Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, and Iowa and Minnesota are all better. This is just one example of what happened last year when the ACC and the Big Ten got together. Minnesota was only good enough to go 3-6. Think about this. Minnesota 3-6 in the Big Ten. Georgia Tech was good enough to go 5-3 in the ACC. They played in a bowl game. Minnesota won by 24 points. And that is only one of 6 examples. The Big Ten went 5-1 against the ACC last year. And let's see, this year they didn't even play one game, did they? Penn State beat Pitt. So I will not hold that against the ACC because Penn State's probably the second or third or fourth best team in the Big Ten. And Pitt is more like the, well, who knows? Because they're in that mix of who knows who's the second best team in the ACC. And so Penn State only beat Pitt by a touchdown at home. So we can't really glean too much from that. But that, I believe, is the only game this season between the Big Ten and the ACC. Boston College beat Rutgers. Boston College, 6-6, mid-tier ACC team. Rutgers, just abysmal, awful, just a disaster beyond belief. So we can't take a whole lot from that score. Okay. David, why are all the Clemson fans talking junk? They know this Buckeye team is 1,000 times better than the 2016 team. We have a much better quarterback, running back, and offensive line. Yes, all 3 of those points are valid, David. 1,000 times better? That Ohio State team was one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the country. This Ohio State team, it remains to be seen. I can almost assuredly say that this Ohio State team is one of the 3 best teams in the country. They may be the best team in the country. We shall see. Which that still, it wasn't going to prove it. It's only going to prove who was the best team that night. But that's the system we have. That's the only thing we can go on. But that Ohio State team, yes, it had its limitations. This was my thought going into that game in 2016, that I saw that Ohio State offense not only struggle against Michigan, and Michigan was a poor man's Clemson that year. Michigan had a tremendous defense, but I thought Michigan's defense is tremendous, elite, but Clemson's is even more athletic and better than Michigan's. Not by a whole lot, but that Clemson defense was better than Michigan. Not by much. But I thought if Ohio State is struggling just to get a first down against Michigan, and no, it just wasn't the one game. Ohio State scored 24 points. They won 24-20 against Northwestern that year. A Northwestern team that I believe went 8-5. It was a decent team, but Ohio State could not put up points against anybody with a decent defense that year. And so part of me went into that playoff game, Clemson, Ohio State, thinking Ohio State cannot score against this defense. It's going to be painful. And that's what turned out to be the case. But The other half of my college football brain was telling me, you know what? And remember, this is Clemson 2016 prior to winning the championship. The other half of my brain was telling me, Urban Meyer, 5 weeks to prepare. Look at his bowl record. Look at his championship game record. Part of my brain was telling me that. I'm going to rag on changing the determination of conference champion from conference records to overall record for the length of this live stream. And I'm sorry to do that, Mark. Got to hear your opinion. I thought I just gave it, I believe, but I'm way back at 306. Oh my goodness, I'm way behind on these comments. I apologize. All right. Prince, you have every right to brag and be arrogant. You have every right. Also understand that your team's only played 2 other games against 2 teams. They've only played Oklahoma and Ohio State once each. So there's not a whole lot of data to go by there. Alabama is a 7.5 point favorite against Michigan is a lock, probably. Antonio Gandy Golden is an amazing wide receiver. Good luck in the NFL. Flames Nation is going to miss you. Liberty. So I'm going to try to just whip through these comments. I apologize for anybody. Newbie doobie. Wow. Newbie doobie, thank you so much for the contribution. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you as well. You may want to use an E on the Merry. Just a suggestion there to point you in the right direction. Just trying to help you out. Merry Christmas. Yes, Newbie doobie. Merry Christmas to you and your family, whoever celebrates with you. Wear a Florida State shirt on Wednesdays. Love college football as much as you do. So somebody would have to send me a Florida State shirt, and no, I still wouldn't wear it. So, but thank you anyway. We go neutral. That's part of the brand here, Newbie doobie. You know that. But thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Newbie doobie gets the vision of what we're doing here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and that is to be here full-time, full throttle. We are going to explode come the off season. I've got a list of about 112 things to do to help grow the channel, build the channel. But right now we're focused on college football and the content, and you will not see the content suffer once the season's over. I will still be cranking out for those of you who have not been with me during an off season. You'll find out that we hammer out the content in the off season just as much as we do during the season. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I just buttoned something when I created my account name. Sorry about that. Thanks for the answer. Okay. Crossover schedule should be placement and opposite placement. For example, Georgia won the SEC East, so their 2 crossover opponents would be LSU and Arkansas. Okay. So their 2 crossover opponents for next year would be LSU and Arkansas. Okay, I can go along with that to a certain extent, except for college football is about traditions. So I have built out a system, Eli, that's similar to what you're talking about here, but I preserve the tradition. So there's a Georgia-Auburn tradition that needs to be considered here. JT Thompson, thank you so much. MRTV is the new 4-letter network for college football. JT, Joel, thank you so much. I appreciate the contribution so much. So much. I'm not going to be able to get to all these comments because, yeah, the Art Schlechter jersey made an appearance once, and probably half the people on here don't know who Art Schlechter is. Would Urban Meyer be a good hire for the Redskins? Yes, he would be a good hire for them. They would not be a good hire for him. Who's worse, Arkansas or Rutgers? Rutgers, Eli. Rutgers. Look at box scores. Look at the stats. Look at the box scores for Rutgers football. Yes. Arkansas would beat Rutgers by 2 scores. Yes, Florida State went to Michigan in 1991 and won that game, I believe, 51-31. I believe I can see Terrell Buckley with a pick 6 on Elvis Gerbach. Saban did not really build Michigan State. Michigan State was winning 6 and 7 games before he got there, and he won 6 or 7 games at Michigan State. He had one big season, his last season there, that helped him grab the LSU job, in which Michigan State went 9-2. Then he did not coach the bowl game against Florida in the Citrus Bowl. This is one of the best Michigan State teams and seasons of all time with Plaxico Burress at wide receiver. But Michigan State in 1999 with Nick Saban went 9-2, upset Florida in the Citrus Bowl, finished 10-2 in the top 10 in the nation. So that was his one big season. But otherwise, Nick Saban at Michigan State, I'm going to say Nick Saban at Michigan State, if I had a number of games that he coached there, I would say it was about 60 games. 95 through 99, 5 seasons. Yeah, I'm going to say that he coached about 60 games. I'm going to say he went 33-27 at Michigan State. Nah, I'll say a little bit better than that. 35-25. Nick Saban at Michigan State. What did I say? My prediction on Nick Saban at Michigan State, I estimated that he went 35-25. He went 34-24. Pretty damn close. All right, David, horrible person, great economy. Okay. Whoa, I got to read these comments before I take them to the screen. Pete Carroll used to do that too. He would schedule Auburn, Ohio State, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, Nebraska. Yes, Pete Carroll played teams. I don't know how much he had to do with the scheduling, but that's what happened. David, yes, he is. Newton, I hate politics and sports forums as well. David, yes. Saban, top 3. Okay, this is the stupidest thing. Yes. Texas are busted. Yes, that Urban Meyer is the 46th ranked head coach of all time by this panel is beyond insane. So when I saw the top 10, I even said, well, where's Urban Meyer? Urban Meyer has the best record. He has the number 1 winning percentage of anyone in modern college football history, meaning we are taking out black and white, Frank Leahy and Newt Rockne. I think they're the 2 above him. So they, of course, coached in the 20s and 30s. So if we take the entirety of college football history, Urban Meyer is third all-time in winning percentage. He is actually number 1 in anyone that we would consider to be a great coach in this day and age of college football. Number 1 in winning percentage. And it's not like he was given a gift job. Like, it's not like he showed up at Ohio State after Jim Tressel and then he had a great record. He did this at Bowling Green. He resurrected that program. He did this at Utah. He did this at Florida when Ron Zook was losing 5 games a year. He won 2 national championships in 3 years. He did this at Ohio State. Yeah. That is pathetic. Texas are busted. Good call. That is pathetic. That is a complete joke. I could argue, I'm not saying that he is. So don't somebody's going to put it in the comment section that I just said Urban Meyer was the greatest football coach of all time. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I could make an argument and it would be a logical, sensible, damn good argument that he is the greatest head coach of all time. He retired at the age of what, 53, 54 with what he's done? Nick Saban has basically accomplished, and again, I am discarding national championships to a certain extent because you've got to be given the opportunity to win the national championship, in which Nick Saban almost every time that his team's been in position has been given that opportunity. Urban Meyer has been robbed a few times of the opportunity, 2012, 17, 18. You could say that Urban Meyer's record, well, his winning percentage far exceeds Nick Saban. But in terms of championships, he's 15 years, 13 years, 13, I believe, years younger than Nick Saban. So if health was not an issue, and I know that that needs to be a consideration, but if Urban Meyer would continue to coach, he would have 13 more years, all things equal, all things if they were equal, and he coached just as long as Nick Saban, would have 13 years to catch up to his national championship total. David, yes, you're right. Joel, JT Thompson, you're right. Alabama's, they come up with that number. Yes, Austin, you're right. I'm dedicated. Thank you. Yes, it's a joke. Thank you so much, Bad Dude Corn Pop. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is the first time I've seen your handle in the live stream, in the live chat comments section. Thank you. You can probably tell that I'm losing my voice. But thank you for encouraging others to hit the thumbs up because that helps us immensely. So please, if you like what we do, even if you disagree with me, if you like what we do here, and that's discuss, debate, analyze college football, bring on the best bloggers we can find, best broadcasters we can find to talk college football and give you team reports and analysis. I'm going to go crazy on analysis once the season's over. If you like what we do, at least hit the like button, because what that does is that if we get that rolling well enough, that gets those YouTube algorithms moving and it puts us in the suggested videos. And when you get yourself in the suggested videos, that's when the numbers start to move. That moves the needle. Eli, the Big Ten is better than the SEC. The SEC had so many losses to group of 5 teams. Well, Tennessee lost one of those games. Missouri lost one of those games. Arkansas, they're awful. Who else? I believe that's it. Basically, Arkansas lost to everybody. Mizzou lost to Wyoming. Tennessee lost to Georgia State. South Carolina lost to App State. Okay, so that's 3 plus Arkansas is a disaster. So we'll throw out Arkansas like we're going to throw out Rutgers. They lose to everybody. Illinois lost to a group of 5. Northwestern, I don't believe they did, even though they went 3-9. Group of 5 Losses in the Big Ten. Illinois. Maryland must have lost. Yeah, they lost to Temple. So it's about even. 3-2? I don't know, Eli. I don't know if we can go there. So I'm going to apologize for not getting to all these questions and being able to explain and answer for everybody's comments. David, I've said the same thing over and over. Those are the two programs that need to lift the ACC. They're the two most logical that have the recruiting footprint to lift the ACC. Eli, the bottom of the SEC is trash. Tennessee was the third best team in the SEC East. Arguably, yes. Quentin, yes. Everybody lock in on this statistic. Clemson was 2-0 against the Power 5 out of conference. They beat Texas A&M and South Carolina. The rest of the ACC was 2-14 against the other four conferences. Look it up, add it up. That's the truth. Newbie doobie. Wow. This says so much right here. Think about this. Oh my goodness. We have 17,000 subscribers here. We have 17,000 subscribers. And obviously, some of those people are dedicated, like all of you watching a live stream at 4 a.m. in the morning. Thank you so much for doing this. 76 people on the line at 4 in the morning with no notification. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to apologize one more time and maybe 10 more times for not having a set live stream schedule, but it's my work schedule and I really can't commit to it. But once we hit the off season, I would like to dedicate myself to figuring out a live stream schedule that you can count on. But that speaks volumes. That right there, newbie doobie, man, I should have this guy do my marketing for me. That's it right there. Who out there is going to miss a buck? But if you don't, man, I hate this conversation. I really hate this conversation, so I won't continue it because I hate to talk about money. But man, guys like Newbie Doobie get it. DeAndre gets on here all the time and throws me $2. He gets it because he knows what the vision is and knows that. And if you don't have a dollar, I very much appreciate your situation. Believe me. I just want you to enjoy the content. But most of you do have, as Newbie Doobie says, one freaking dollar. Most of you do. And you wouldn't miss it once a month. And what we could do with that is just, it's mind boggling. Believe me, it's mind boggling. If I had the 50 hours a week that I could take back from another location and focus on college football, people can't believe, and I'm not patting myself on the back for this. This just means that I dedicate myself to it and I work pretty hard at this. People generally can't believe that I've got a full-time job where I'm spending 50 hours a week, or that I've got a relationship, or that I've got this and that and other things going, because they just can't believe it. That's why I'm up here at 4 a.m. because I've got a couple kids and I've got a relationship and I've got 50 hours dedicated at another job. But newbie doobie, you get it. Because I've got enough people now with 17,000 subscribers. And if you count the other channels, 21,000 subscribers, that if I just got a little drop in the ocean from everyone, whew, wow. Yeah. Yes. John, Toledo, Utah. I'm sorry, Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State. Yes, yes, yes. Anthony, Mark, where do you rank Jimmy Johnson as the greatest college coaches in college football history? So, Anthony, you probably could guesstimate this. Instead of spouting off stuff that just off the top of my head, like most people in my position would do, I would have to give that measured thought. You, you're asking me on the spot to rank Jimmy Johnson. He's one of the 20 greatest. His record. So he took over Miami. So he had a decent run at Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State was nothing when he was there prior to. And so he did good work at Oklahoma State. Let's not forget that. Then he went to Miami in 1984 after Schnellenberger got the offer from what? The Colts? And didn't take the job. Yes, the Colts. So then Jimmy Johnson took over in 84. They had really good seasons in 84 and 85 in particular. Of course, 86 was the big team that lost to Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl, and on and on. He won the national championship in 87 and 80. Wow. Well, he won one national championship because they won in 87 when they beat Nebraska. And then in 88, they lost the game of the century, one of the many game of a century in South Bend against Notre Dame. And they did not win the national championship, even though they probably had the best team in 88. And then, of course, he left to go to the Cowboys. And that's the end of his. So it's a very compacted career. It's greatness. It's like a 15-year college career, but the greatness is like 4 years. So he's a top 25 guy. So I will answer your question to a certain extent, but I hate answering questions like that when I really can't measure it and do the research and take everything into consideration. That probably hurts me in doing a show like this because I want to give you the accurate answer and not just Jimmy Johnson. Well, he's a top 15 guy. Saban all time. I take Dabo right now. Vandy lost to UNLV. Good call. So I guess it's 4 versus 2 in group of 5 losses. But Eli, to be fair, who did the Big Ten beat non-conference? These are the good teams that the Big Ten beat. Notre Dame, Iowa State, Cincinnati, Pitt. Those are all the good to decent teams that the Big Ten beat. Notre Dame, Iowa State, Pitt, Cincinnati. Yeah. Who did the SEC beat out of conference? Oregon, Miami, Florida State, Duke, West Virginia, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Texas. So the decent to good wins for the SEC would be Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas, Miami. If you want to go bowl teams, Florida State, Louisville. So the SEC decidedly beat better teams in the non-conference than the Big Ten did. Eli, to be fair. Yes, he is. Is he in the Grove right now? Ole Miss lost to a group of 5 team, I think. I do not believe that Ole Miss lost to a group of. Oh, they lost to Memphis. But Memphis is a top 15 to 20 team in the nation. So I know that I do this as well. Derek Wu, get to you in just a second. That sometimes we just automatically say, this is somebody's record against a group of 5. This is their record against the Power 5. And basically we're saying All the Power Five is better than all the Group of Five. And I do that just to generalize too, but we've got to keep in mind that there is Boise State and there is UCF and there is Cincinnati and Memphis, and those teams are better than Ole Miss and Arkansas and Georgia Tech and Rutgers certainly and Oregon State and other teams. They're grouped and they're better than a group, a collection of the Power Five. So there is an overlap. It's not all the Power Fives are all better than all the Group of Fives. So when we say that, we've got to put it into context, and it's an easy fix to make. It's an easy um, delineation to make, but it's not accurate. It's not completely accurate. Derek Wu, thank you so much for the contribution. You clearly appreciate what we do here. So thank you so much, Derek. Todd, good to see you. Joe, I thank you so much for the kind comment there. David, thank you. And I know I'm backtracking on these comments. MMA buds, it's only one. Yes. Yes, for you in California, which I would love to have your weather right now. I'm freezing. Actually, my feet are freezing right now. It cannot get warm enough in this place. I got home from work about 2:30. I fired up the live stream, and I keep my house really cold when I'm not here because of the obvious expense, and so it takes a long time for it to heat back up. How do you like the Christmas tree? No comments. No comments on the Christmas tree, I don't think. I've not found any comments on the Christmas tree. So the reason the Christmas tree just went up, not that anybody wants to hear my story, is that so I've got two kids. I've got a son and a daughter, and it's kind of my daughter and my thing to pick out the Christmas tree. So my son comes as well. I'm not going to discount my son. He comes with us, but he really doesn't care. So my daughter and I, we are going to bake Christmas cookies tomorrow. That's going to be fun, and we're also going to do shopping for our Christmas Eve dinner. But my daughter and I, we pick out the Christmas tree. My son helps us lift it and goes with us, but it's really our thing to pick out and select the Christmas tree and also decorate it. Well, my daughter's been in college now for 3 years, so for now 3 years running, I have to wait until she gets home from college, and then we can find some time, usually on a weekend, to go out and get the Christmas tree. So we didn't get that thing set up until what, December 20th, and it's usually a post Halloween. It's a post Thanksgiving. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get there. All right, everyone. I believe I have caught up, and I will give everyone one more chance to help us out on the super chat. Otherwise, I appreciate everyone who comments, everybody who comes on here in the live stream. I thank you so much for the impromptu. And I, again, apologize for not getting the notifications or having a set schedule. We will get that fixed. I have a to-do list like you would not believe for the off season in regards to producing comments. Well, I just looked at the comments icon here and it came out of my mouth in producing content for you, but also the to-do list that I have to build this channel, the marketing, the branding, all the things that need to be done to build the channel so it's sustainable. I would love for everyone to join me at our college football community on Patreon. It's our Voice of College Football community. So you get my bowl predictions. That's great. Playoff predictions. I'm not going to guarantee anything there. I did go 58% against the spread during the regular season and 80% against the money line, but I am not a handicapper or odds maker. It's for fun. I generally predict games pretty well, better than most people you're going to come across. But the reason we do this is because I've got an offer out there to bring you on to do a live stream with me once a week. So, live stream with me per your request, one per week. So, that's the offer. You're a better man than me, Eli. I love the warm weather. Yeah, leaning. I don't think so. I thought we did pretty well, but if it is leaning, I think it's one of those deals, JT, where the bottom was straight, but we get a little lean in the top here, a little bit. So it classes up the set just a bit for at least the holiday season. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Check out the videos. We're going to keep pumping out the content, and probably because I did this live stream, I'm not going to get to a couple videos that I'm going to cut sometime tomorrow, and I will try to get you a notification out early on the next live stream that we're going to do right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for the support. We'll see you soon.